feature an update 1 year into the launch of the Save the Food campaign, a nationwide public service campaign to reduce wasted food. You may recall that we did a webinar to aid the campaign launch in April 2016. Households make up a significant portion of the percentage of food that goes to waste across the United States. Preventing that waste from occurring in the first place is one of the most cost-effective ways to address wasted food. The Natural Resources Defense Council has teamed up with the Ad Council, a nonprofit arm of the U.S. advertising industry that brought you Smokey the Bear and Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, to help change people's behavior and waste less food. How is Save the Food going and where is it headed? This webinar will give you a look into the campaign activities and results so far, upcoming campaign materials that you can use, and practical examples from partners on how they are leveraging the campaign on a local level. I would like to introduce you to our speakers, Joanne Berkenkamp from the Natural Resources Defense Council, Hilary Landa and Rochelle Reeder from the Advertising Council, followed by our implementing partners, Jenny Kedward from Dakota County, Minnesota, and Barbara Hamilton from the San Diego Food System Alliance in California. For full bios, please go to our SMM Web Academy website. Today, our five featured speakers will tag team throughout the webinar presentation. We will break 3 times during the presentation for questions. First, after the introduction of the campaign, and again, both after the community partners. Finally, we will host a longer question and answer session at the conclusion of all the presentations. Please feel free to type your questions throughout the webinar. Moving into today's webinar, please note our disclaimer, and now we will get to our speakers. Joanne, George is switching the slides, and I will turn the presentation over to you. Joanne Berkenkamp from the Natural Resources Defense Council, who is joined by Hilary Landa and Rochelle Reeder from the Advertising Council. Joanne.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're just thrilled to have so many of you with us to talk about the Ad Council campaign on Save the Food. This has been such an exciting endeavor for us, and we're thrilled to talk with you about the results so far and where the campaign is going. So I work with the Natural Resources Defense Council. We're a large environmental organization working across the United States and in India and China as well, on a wide range of environmental endeavors, including climate change and energy, fresh water, oceans, human health, wildlife, food and agriculture, and a range of other issues. So let's move into the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about where we'll be headed today. Jorge, if you can advance that, that would be great. So here's our agenda. I'll be talking about the issue of food waste broadly to set the context. Then we'll hear from our colleagues at the Ad Council about the results of the Save the Food campaign and where it's going. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about the importance of partnership in this work and the potential for all of you to participate in the campaign as well. And then we'll hear from 2 fantastic local examples, one in Minnesota and one in California. And as Chris says, we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A at a couple different points, as well as at the end. We want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered today. So let's move on to the next slide. So just in brief, the issue of food waste is a big one that is getting increasing attention in the United States. As we know, up to 40% of our food supply every year goes uneaten. And consumers in our homes account for at least 40% of all of that waste. So we know consumers are really critical to this issue, and we need to engage them effectively if we're really going to crack it. The average American family of 4 spends about $1,500 or a little more on food that goes uneaten every year. So it really is a pocketbook issue at the family level, and each individual tosses about 20 pounds of food per month. So as you'll see on the next slide, Jorge, if you can advance that for us. Thank you. This has very serious environmental consequences. The food that we grow and don't eat uses up about 21% of the fresh water that's used in the United States every year. It accounts for about 18% of the fertilizer that's used and about 9% of the cropland. It's the largest single component of material that goes into our landfills, and it constitutes about 21% of what gets landfilled every year. And of course, there are significant greenhouse gas emissions associated, not only with production, but processing, transportation, packaging, disposal, and so on. So the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with wasted food are equivalent to about 37 million passenger vehicles in the United States every year. So it's a major climate change issue. And then, of course, nearly 1 in 8 Americans is food insecure and lacks a secure supply of food to their table. So we live in this period of enormous excess and waste and also scarcity. And so for so many reasons, environmental and social as well as economic, we really need to crack this issue of food that goes to waste. So at the consumer level, we know that even though food waste is trending up, it's still relatively little known. And most people believe that they don't, in fact, waste much food. The Center for Livable Futures came up with some fantastic survey data that showed that about 73% of Americans believe they waste less than average. And of course, that's mathematically impossible. NRDC has done some more recent research and corroborated that figure. And I find that number to be so helpful because I think it illustrates the blind spot that many of us have in our own personal lives about how much food, in fact, is going to waste in our own homes. So the question for us as we embarked on this process with the Ad Council was really to ask, how can we change this reality? How can we engage consumers in a different way? And as we developed the campaign, we ran into a number of challenges because we found that there's so many good intentions, in fact, that lead to food going to waste in the home. So our aspirations to be good caretakers for our family members, to be generous hosts, to eat healthy, to get that extra produce at the store, and to be adventurous eaters often lead to waste in the home. And so it was a very tricky process to figure out, how do we engage people? How do we not blame people? How do we create an opportunity for really positive engagement? And that's what we've tried to do through this campaign. So if you take a look at the next slide, you can see that our intention has been both to inform people, to give them information and strategies for action, and to then inspire them to act. And we've really sought to provide a wake-up call to disrupt their habits and a call to action to create new habits and to be an integral part of the solution. So let's move on to the next slide. And just to say, this all led us to the creation of the Save the Food campaign. And this has been a collaboration between the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Ad Council and our advertising firm, Sapient Nitro. The campaign launched about 1 year ago, and I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Hillary Landa at the Ad Council to tell you more about the campaign, where it's been and where it's going.
Thank you, Joanne. My name is Hillary Landa, and I'm a campaign manager at the Ad Council. I've been working on the Save the Food campaign since its inception at the beginning of 2015. And for those of you who aren't aware, the Ad Council is a 75-year-old nonprofit that creates national public service advertising campaigns in partnership with nonprofits and government agency sponsors, advertising agencies who create the campaign strategy and creative pro bono, and our media partners. So if you go to the next slide, I think you can go to the next slide. So after hearing from NRDC that consumers account for 40% of food waste, we saw an opportunity to intervene at the consumer level and create a campaign that educates Americans about the environmental and economic impacts of food waste and provide them with easy tips and tools to change their habits and help reduce waste in their own homes. So we, Sapient and NRDC, identified a dual target of both moms and millennials after conducting extensive exploratory research, which included ethnographies, expert interviews, and literature reviews. We chose moms because they often still serve as the food gatekeepers in many households. They are always trying to do best for their kids, but are dealing with the reality of picky eaters, hectic schedules, and time pressures. We also chose to focus on millennials as they are generally very socially minded. They're engaged, idealistic, and eager to help further our message when given compelling content. But they're also dealing with the reality of busy social lives and starting to build their professional lives, which can often get in the way of meal planning. So if you go to the next slide. The ultimate goal of the campaign is to drive consumers to our website, savethefood.com, where they can learn how to reduce food waste through learning how to better meal plan, how to properly store different foods, and how to use up scraps and foods that are past their prime, through our innovative recipes that are featured on the site. And if you go to the next slide, our campaign strategy, targets, and goals manifested themselves in the creation of our Extraordinary Life and Times of Strawberry Spot, which is meant to show all of the resources and work that goes into bringing one piece of fruit to your fridge, only to sadly be wasted. So we'll go ahead and play it now for those who haven't seen it yet before. Okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and proceed if you want to jump back to the PowerPoint. So the campaign really is, no problem. We can send through the YouTube links after the webinar. But the campaign really is a fully integrated multimedia campaign. So in addition to our strawberry spots, which we have in 30-second, 60-second, and 2-minute versions, we also have print and outdoor, radio, web, and mobile assets, if you want to go to the next slide there. So we not only have those traditional mediums, but have also co-created content with partners like BuzzFeed, Food Network, Vice, and placed our creative on grocery carts and stores, which is obviously a very relevant placement for our audience and message. So if you want to go to the next slide, the slide that has the print and outdoor assets. Sorry, next. And one more. So our print and outdoor assets feature some of the most commonly wasted foods paired with various shocking stats in order to quickly bring awareness to the issue and then encourage consumers to cook it, store it, share it, and visit our site for additional information. If you want to go to the next slide, when we first launched the campaign in April of 2016 in conjunction with Earth Day, we received a ton of great press coverage. Our top 10 press hits reached over 31 million people, and we were featured in a number of high traffic outlets like Adweek, National Geographic, and Fast Company. We also received some great support by social media influencers like Joey Graceffa and chefs like Mario Batali and Tom Colicchio, who possess large followings. We created a multimedia news release that included our press release announcing the campaign and all of the creative assets, which garnered 220 media placements, 33,000 views, and 90 million impressions. Lastly, we also did an S&P RMT, which stands for Satellite Media Tour and Radio Media Tour, at a Feeding the 5K event in Union Square in New York, where NRDC's Dana Gunders participated in local and national interviews with radio and TV stations about the issue and about the campaign. So it was a great start to the promotion of the campaign, and we've only been building off of that momentum since we launched. So if you want to go to the next slide, the Save the Food campaign is one that has really been beloved by our digital and media partners, and we've conducted numerous partnerships over the last year. So if you want to go to the next slide. First, through our relationship with Facebook, we received $100,000 in donated media that we were able to use in 2016 towards promoting carousel and video ads that garnered great results. And we've received this $100,000 again in 2017. Thus far, we've devoted a portion of that money towards promoting our Food Network PSA, which I'll touch on the next slide, but we're planning to devote the rest to promoting upcoming activities later this fall. So second, we recently partnered with Food Network, where we were able to integrate our campaign messaging into an episode of Chopped Junior that aired on April 18th, right before Earth Day, and focused on creatively repurposing leftovers. And it was a great opportunity to reach moms who often watch the show with their children. We also created a 30-second PSA that featured Chopped Junior host Ted Allen and former White House chef Sam Cass that ran on Food Network channel for a month leading up to Earth Day, and that we also were able to distribute nationally to our network of TV stations. Food Network also published an article entitled Easy Ways to Reduce Food Waste on foodnetwork.com, and promoted this article on the CHOP Junior show site as well as the Food Network homepage. They also created 4 co-branded social videos that lived within that article and were promoted across the CHOP Junior, Food Network, and Save the Food channels. And Food Network was great about promoting the episode, our PSA, and the article across all of their social platforms and a few of their newsletters. And in total, Food Network provided about $787,000 in donated media support, and this was a completely free partnership for the campaign. So on the next slide, I included a link to the 30-second PSA, but if we're still having technical difficulties, we can send through this link after the webinar as well.
We're going to give it a go.
Okay, sounds good.
No, we can't do it. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Just want to continue. I'm sorry. We're still having trouble.
Yeah, no problem at all. So lastly, just wanted to touch on a partnership that we recently wrapped up with Pinterest, where we worked with their creative studio, the Pin Factory, if you go to the next slide, to create unique creative for our Pinterest page that was then promoted using $100,000 in donated media from them. And this garnered great results on a very relevant platform where many people are often going to find recipes and meal planning tips and tricks. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll now provide an overview of the broader campaign results since we launched about a year ago. The next slide shows how we evaluate all of our campaigns at the Ad Council. We look at exposure, so how much donated media and how many online video views the campaign has received. In this case, the donated media number is just preliminary through May of this year, and we already see it exceeding the Ad Council average of 25 to 35 million for donated media in a year, which is great. We look at awareness, so the percentage of people within our target who report recognizing our PSAs through our continuous tracking study. We look at engagement, so our social following and our website analytics. And last but certainly not least, we look at impact, so changes in our target's attitudes and behaviors, which is also reported through our continuous tracking studies. So notably, we've seen a shift from 51% to 54% of people saying that they believe that food waste is a big problem in the U.S. So we're already starting to see that shift in awareness, which is great news. If you want to go to the next slide, it just breaks down the donated media by medium, and we see thus far that we've received the most support for our outdoor and TV assets. The next slide shows how we've also received strong web traffic to date, including 1.8 million page views, 1.2 million sessions, almost 1 million unique users who are spending about 1 minute and 15 seconds on the site, and we see a fairly low bounce rate, so most people aren't immediately leaving when they land on our site, which is always great to see. The next slide shows how we've also seen strong engagement with our key pages on the site. The Store It page is basically a large storage directory where consumers can learn how to store a wide variety of foods. The Tips page contains a number of articles regarding meal planning, date labeling, and other issues. The Cook It page is our recipe section, and we're hoping to drive even more traffic to these pages as we've recently revamped them. We reorganized the Store It page and added a search functionality at the top. We made the Tips page more user-friendly, and we're continuing to add new recipes to the Cook It section. As the next slide shows, we also have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest social channels that are managed by the NRDC team, and we're continuing to grow our following. We currently have about 28,000 total followers, we've seen 3.8 million total video views across all of those channels. We've received 4.1 million social engagements, which includes things like comments and likes, and have about 45 million total impressions. And now I'm going to let my colleague Rochelle on our research team walk us through our most recent continuous tracking study results.
Thanks, Hillary. Hi, everyone. I'm Rochelle Reeder. I'm a director on the strategy and evaluation team here at the Ad Council, and I'm excited to share some of the highlights from our first year of the campaign. So for background, we get all of our campaign awareness, attitude, and behavioral data through our continuous tracking survey, which is an online survey of nationally representative respondents, and it's always in field, which means that we collect survey data weekly, and then we look at the trends monthly. So because it's always in field, in little over a year, we've gathered about 9,800 respondents with the demographic makeup that you're seeing on your screen right now. So on the next slide is what we look at first. So we go to see, who is seeing and also recognizing the Save the Food ads. And this trend here represents the percentage of those participants who recognized at least one of our ads. So that could be a TV ad, a video they saw online, a print ad, an outdoor ad. If they've seen at least one of those ads, they're accounted for here. And since we first launched the campaign last year, we've seen significant growth in people being aware of the campaign, up to 31% awareness in May. And from an ad council campaign perspective, it's a campaign in its first year, and for that, it's terrific growth. So because we're also interested in millennials and moms, we look at these groups every quarter about. And what we've seen so far is that significantly more moms are recognizing our print and outdoor ads. But most notably, we've seen more millennials aware of any of our ads that are out there. So we do know that we're reaching the right people. So once people have had a chance to see and remember our ads, we had three main objectives. The first was to raise awareness of food waste as a problem. And so the first question we asked in the survey of people is if they strongly agree that food waste is a problem in the United States. And the general trend that for over half of adults, 54% of them are saying they strongly agree that food waste is a big problem in the United States. And when we look at how those who are aware of the Save the Food ads compare to those who are not aware of the Save the Food ads, we see that 54%, so if you advance the slide a little here, 54% of people in the study strongly agree that food waste is a problem in this country, whether or not they're aware of our ads or not. And what this tells us is that over half of Americans know food waste is a problem, and for the people who strongly believe this, the ads may contribute equally to other sources of information for where they're learning about this. So another question we ask is how much they agree that their individual actions can make a difference in reducing food waste. And what we've seen is that almost 7 in 10 adults in this study agree that their individual actions can make a difference. However, when we look again at those aware of our ads versus not aware of our ads, we see that almost 8 in 10, that 78% of people who are aware of our ads believe that their individual actions can make a difference. And that's as opposed to the only 65% of those who are not aware of our ads. So what that tells us is that people know it's a problem, and hopefully these ads are in fact helping them see the power of their individual actions in making a difference. So our next objective is to generate greater public conversation around food waste. And so in our survey, we asked if people have discussed or shared information with their friends or family about wasting less food. And we've seen that almost 4 in 10, that's 38% of American adult participants in the study say yes, they have discussed or shared information about wasting less food. The exciting part is the difference, though, between those who are aware of our ads versus those who are not aware of our ads. We've seen 64% of those who are aware of our ads say that they're discussing ways to waste less food, and that's compared to only 33% of those who are not aware. So again, we're feeling good that the ads are in fact helping drive those conversations that we want people to have about food waste. Our third objective is to educate and motivate consumers to reduce food waste. Getting people to take action really is the end goal, and often it's the hardest thing to do. So what we asked people was, in the past year, have you sought out any information about ways to waste less food? And we've seen that 28% said they've sought out information about how they can waste less food. So that's almost 3 in 10 people trying to educate themselves about reducing food waste. But even more exciting is seeing that those who are aware of our ads Among them, 59% are seeking information about how to waste less food. So that's almost 6 in 10 people who've seen our ads and then said they've gone out and sought information about wasting less food. And that's compared to only 17% of those who were not aware of our ads. And then we also get straight to the point. We ask people if they've reduced the amount of food they throw away in the past 6 months. And we've seen that 7 in 10 people say, yes, they have. That is pretty high. But what's even higher, it's higher for those who are aware of our ads. When you look at those who are aware of our ads, 87% of those people have said they've taken steps to reduce food waste, which is outstanding. So on the next slide, we look specifically at millennials and some of the specific actions that they're taking to reduce food waste. We do collect this information for our general market audiences and for moms, but I wanted to just take a little time here to call out some of the most notable shifts that we're seeing, and those are among our millennial audiences. So of all of these reported actions, they're pretty high, which was great to see, but the ones that we've seen the most growth in the past year are related to planning and storing. So more millennials in the study say that they avoid eating out at home, or they avoid eating out when they have food at home. They're using a shopping list, and they're storing their food properly. So all of this was really something that we're pleased to see. We're pleased with these results so far and are really looking forward to all of the progress that's coming. So I'll turn it back over to Hillary, who's going to talk about what's next for the campaign.
Great. Thanks, Rochelle. If you want to go to the next slide, the first stage of all of our campaigns is increasing awareness of the issue. Obviously, awareness that a problem exists is the first step to creating those additional attitudinal and behavioral changes. And now that we're entering phase two of the campaign, we're going to continue the awareness building, but also start to complement those materials with more concrete tools and tips that will help consumers more easily change their habits with food. So we have a number of activities currently in the works. We just finished up creating new digital banners that drive consumers directly to the Cook It and Store It pages of the site to more quickly drive them to cooking and storing resources. In order to help consumers learn how to properly store a wide array of foods and how to discern if these foods are still good, we also just created an Amazon Alexa skill called Save the Food, where consumers can ask their Alexa device questions like, how should I store bananas, or is this banana still good to eat? And Alexa is programmed to answer their questions, drawing from food storage information housed on our campaign website. So those of you who have an Alexa device should definitely enable our skill. And we also created a promotional video to promote the skill that lives on our site and has been promoted on our social channels. We are also working on a chef activation with a celebrity chef who can't be named at this time, but who will be featured in a video that will be ready by August, so stay tuned for that. We are also creating a Live It section of our site that will provide users with more information on how to make food waste reduction habits a true part of their daily lives. We're creating a Share It section of the site that will house all of our campaign assets and information for how partners can help promote our messaging and assets. The new community outreach materials that are shown on the next two slides will be included in this section as well. These were developed based on feedback from NRDC partners, and the idea is to distribute these at events so that individuals have the tips and tools needed to help reduce food waste at home. They include content from the site that are formatted so that people can take it home and put it on their fridge as a good reminder. So as you can probably tell, we're busy working on a wide array of new assets and activities, so be on the lookout for these updates in the next couple of months.
Great. Thank you so much for presenting that material. And again, apologies for the issues with video. We often have issues with videos on webinars, and I apologize for that. Just a few questions on the campaign materials, which are fabulous. Is there any talk of putting them into Spanish or another language?
We have had preliminary conversations with NRDC about that when we initially launched the campaign. I think due to budgetary reasons, and research that they did on their end, they decided to just stick with English, at least for the first round of the campaign, but definitely might be something to be considering in the future.
Great, thank you so much. We'll just take one more question at this point in time before we plunge ahead. And we're talking a little bit, I've heard this before, how does the use it, store it, share it integrate with the ideas of composting or not composting?
I can go ahead and take that one. This is Joanne Berkenkamp at NRDC. You know, when you look at the environmental and economic consequences of food that goes to waste, the greatest benefits happen when food is not wasted in the first place, and when folks are focused on prevention. And certainly if there's food that is wasted and can't be avoided, you want that to be composted rather than landfilled. But the priority really is on prevention. And that's what this campaign is aimed at, that very first top sliver of the hierarchy, which is where you get you know, all of the benefits of not using water, the pesticides, the fertilizers, the energy, and so forth that goes into producing that food in the first place. So that's really where we're aiming at with this campaign. And then we hope that as people start to pay more attention to avoiding food waste in the first place, they will think more about what happens to the food that they can't avoid wasting, and they'll focus more on composting rather than having to be landfilled.
Great, and of course, Joanne, that totally aligns with EPA's food recovery hierarchy with source reduction at the top tier.
Absolutely.
We have many other questions, but I think from the aspect of time, we'll forge on ahead to the second part of our presentation. So at this point in time, I would like to introduce Jenny from Dakota County.
Actually, Christina, this is Joanne. I can take this. That's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joanne. Yes, please.
Jenny in a moment. Yeah, thank you. So this is Joanne Berkenkamp at NRDC. One of the things we want to turn our attention to now at this part in the webinar is to really move on from that really fantastic update from the Ad Council to talk with you a little bit about the role of partners in this work. So as a core part of the campaign, the Ad Council has been engaging in outreach with 33,000 media channels across the United States. Television, radio, many, many names that you would know in the media world. In addition to that, NRDC really felt like we had an opportunity to partner with a wide range of organizations and businesses, nonprofits, and others around the country and to really enable others to participate in this work. So we've been working with city governments, county governments, universities, compost haulers and recycling companies, entities like Sodexo and Compass Group USA, with whom we have national agreements, other types of businesses and nonprofit organizations to enlist their participation in the campaign in whatever way works for their organization. And you can see some of the examples here. We've worked with municipalities around having the campaign shown on, for instance, Metro Transit, you know, bus shelters, on bus signs, on light rail signs, on trash hauling trucks. We've had examples with food service management companies using these in food service contexts in the cafeterias where they provide food service. A variety of universities are engaged. So we really invite a wide range of organizations to participate. All of the materials that Hillary just walked you through are available for free in electronic form on our website. So it is all there. We invite folks to download that and make use of it. There are also some opportunities to co-brand and to add your logo to the materials as well. So we would love to be in conversation with you about that. So if we move to the next slide, we have an opportunity today to hear from a couple really fantastic examples of partnerships around the country and to hear about how these organizations are implementing the campaign on the ground. So the first example is from the Twin Cities. One of the suburban counties in the Twin Cities is Dakota County, and we'll be hearing from our colleague Jenny Kedward, who works for the county. Their effort has been part of a broader effort in the Twin Cities that engaged 6 partners, the State Pollution Control Agency here in Minnesota, and then a set of the counties who collectively put together about $28,000 to cover the cost of printing out-of-home ads. So that would be things like billboards, and signs to go on buses, bus shelters, the light rail system, and so forth here in the Twin Cities. And then the Ad Council has been working through their media partners to secure placements of that material. So with that $28,000, we estimate that we'll generate about 763 million media impressions, and then also about $3.4 million in media value. And that happens because we spend the resources on printing, which is relatively inexpensive, and then we secure free placements on billboards and other contexts for that material. And so it's allowing the partners here locally to secure a level of media coverage that they could not possibly purchase. So that's a real advantage for them, and we're thrilled to have that partnership in place. And then secondly, we'll also be hearing from San Diego County with Barbara Hamilton and the San Diego Food System Alliance, which is engaging food waste generators and a wide variety of stakeholders in San Diego to address food waste in their context. And it includes restaurants, universities, hospitals, K-12, groceries, distributors and warehouses, as well as facilities like stadiums and event venues. So to move to the next slide. Jorge, if you can advance that for us. Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Kedward, who's going to tell us about what Dakota County is doing.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited to talk about what we've been doing with the national campaign here locally in Dakota County. Slide, please. So if you don't know Dakota County, we are in the Twin Cities Metro, which Twin Cities, of course, are Minneapolis and St. Paul. We are the third largest county in the state, and we make up the southern portion of the Twin Cities. Slide. Okay, so why did we want to focus on food waste? The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, our state environmental agency, conducted a waste sort in 2013. They discovered that over 17% of what residents and businesses were throwing away was food. That definitely sponsored or promoted that we need to do something about all this food waste we have. The state legislature mandated that all the Twin Cities counties now have to recycle 75% of all of our waste by 2030, which includes organics like food waste. Through this mandate, the state agency and counties have to focus on recycling, composting, and waste reduction programs. Great goals, and we're really excited and proud that our legislature made those goals. To reach the 75% recycling goal, cities and counties must incorporate organics collection programs such as household weekly collection, like Minneapolis has, or centralized drop-off sites for residents, like several of our other counties have in the area. Well, we knew, Dakota County, we knew that food waste prevention programs across the nation and the world, we knew from programs like prevention programs across the nation that getting residents to reduce their food waste after programs like curbside collection have been launched is way harder to do after programs have launched instead of before. So we decided to learn from them and launch a prevention program for wasted food before we start launching all of our organics drop-off programs. We thought it was a perfect storm of education before programs. Next slide. So we decided to not make up everything our own and learn from our peers across the nation and world. And Dakota County's food waste prevention program has two main parts: raising awareness and providing education and tools to residents with the goal of less wasted food in homes. We decided to use the Save the Food campaign instead of making our own campaign to be a part of a national movement. We didn't mind that residents were going to savethefood.com instead of our own site. We wanted them to have the information one way or another, and it didn't matter. And the Save the Food website looks a lot better than ours anyway. We are also using tools from the EPA Food Too Good to Waste package, such as storage guides, meal planners, and shopping tips. These tools have been researched and used for many years across the nation, especially by our West Coast colleagues, and I definitely urge you to check those out if you haven't. Next slide. So if you're like me, you might be overwhelmed thinking, how on earth am I supposed to reach 400,000 people in my county and change their behavior? Well, after taking a breath, I stepped back and thought about all the groups that we know waste more food. Not coincidentally, these are the same two groups that are target audiences for the Save the Food campaign: families with young kids and young professionals, also called millennials. I then ranked all of our cities for percentages of these groups. And as you can see, this focuses my efforts on 3 cities for families with young kids and 5 cities for the young professional millennials. That's a lot easier to digest than 400,000 people. We set aside $90,000 for the campaign and education tools throughout the year, but I know I won't come anywhere close to spending that amount. I expect to spend about $40,000, which includes a direct mail piece to all households too. Next slide. And the reason I don't expect to spend all of that money is because of our amazing partnerships that have come through this campaign. Some were expected, like our national partners, NRDC and the Ad Council, and our local allies from county and city staff. And then others have come along that were unexpected but greatly appreciated. They represent local government organizations and private partners, and I'll highlight some of them as we go on. Next slide. We have used our county website, of course, as a vehicle for awareness, including our front page rotating carousel of pictures. I provided our city partners with a toolkit that includes social media posts, articles, and images from the Save the Food campaign to use in their online outlets. And they've gone above and beyond, like Dakota Valley Recycling, which you can see in the middle, does weekly posts on their Facebook and Twitter to advertise the campaign. And I actually wanted to pay for online ads, but found out from the Ad Council they already had a contract with a national vendor to manage all the Save the Food online ads. So instead of doing my own, I leveraged this existing contract and used $5,000 of my allocated budget to pay for the national vendor to just focus more advertising on our audiences, which is amazing because then I don't have to do it. Next slide. We've worked with the Ad Council to customize existing ads, like you can see the broccoli, bread, milk ads, to fit local print publications. We had our own Dakota County logo added to all of the ones that we're paying for to show our partnerships. Of the cities with a high amount of families with kids, we specifically paid for ads in the school district's community education brochures, which are mailed to every home in each of those cities. Next slide. And exciting, so Dakota County sends 2 magazine newsletters each year. This upcoming one in the fall, we have an article about the campaign and tips on reducing wasted food. This edition will also have a half-page ad on the back. A month later, we'll have, now that everyone got that first newsletter, a month later we'll be sending an oversized postcard to all households. The front will look like other campaign ads, and the back will have tips and tools available if they go to our website. Dakota County also provides funding to each city every year to educate residents about recycling and waste diversion. And for this year's funding, we required each city to include an ad or an article in their own city newsletters. Cities can use articles we have provided, or they can make up their own as long as we review and approve. This means for all of this that each household in Dakota County will get at least 3 mailers throughout the year on this important topic. Next slide. All right, you heard Joanne discuss our regional partnerships for static billboards around the whole state. We also discovered another way to partner with a few cities for digital billboards. 2 of our cities have required, when Clear Channel wanted to build a digital billboard in their city, they required Clear Channel to donate space in order to get the permit for building those billboards. So every month they get free space on that billboard to advertise city events. Each city of those 2 cities volunteered a month of their donated space to Dakota County to use for the campaign. And to thank them, we were putting their city logo on the digital billboards to show our great partnership. We're also in the process of printing and hanging campaign posters in all of our county buildings, including 9 of our libraries, city buildings, including city halls and community centers, and our willing partners in schools and businesses. The campaign also spurred the city of Farmington to purchase and install garbage truck billboards, as you can see in the last picture. Dakota County paid for the printing of their first message, which of course is about Save the Food. They're excited to use their new education mechanism going forward, even after the campaign. Next slide. Okay, so this is one of my favorites of the whole campaign. I've been most surprised by the support for airing and showing the strawberry video by our partners. Everyone loves this video. I originally wanted to pay for showing the video as a preview before movies in movie theaters. Then I found out from the Ad Council that I couldn't actually pay to show the movie because of donated assets like the Pixar music, but that's okay. I worked with Screen Vision, who handles national advertising before movies at a lot of the non-AMC theaters. Screen Vision loved the video and wanted to help promote the campaign. We agreed that Dakota County would pay for a 15-second video about our hazardous waste drop-off site. We could pick any topic, but we chose that one because it was already in our communication plan. And Screen Vision donated a premium 30-second spot to show the strawberry video. So now every movie shown from now until the end of the year in three of our target cities will have the Save the Food message, which is pretty amazing. That includes the new Wonder Woman and Star Wars coming out, so it'll be a good movie year. Another exciting opportunity to get in front of families and millennials is at city-sponsored movies in the park. I don't know about you, but almost every city in the Twin Cities takes advantage of summer with these events every week. 3 of our city partners have agreed to show the 2-minute strawberry video before each of their movies. And I've created a slide to show at the end of each video for each event, stating that the county and city support preventing wasted food. And as you can see on that last picture, that's me being interviewed by Mr. Pugh for the city of Lakeville. I can tell you city video production staff love the campaign and they love the visuals about it. 4 of our cities are taking it even further, and they're producing their own videos like the Mr. Pugh video there, but also a food waste superhero and interviewing residents about what they are doing at home. It's very exciting. Next. All right, so every year Dakota County, it has a building at the county fair, and the theme changes every year depending on what the hot topic is. Like last year it was all about our parks. Well, this year they let environmental resources be the theme of the building, and we chose our topic as preventing wasted food. So if you click once, that's our building, and then if you click again, we're going to be having displays such as this, which is at our state fair. We're having similar displays that are interactive about, proper storage and how much money you're wasting and tips. We're very excited. There's about 10,000 people that come to the fair every day. Okay, next. And here's just some other opportunities. We're partnering. We just got new monitors installed in our WIC and licensing areas, waiting areas. So we're actually rotating in Save the Food messaging for those while you're staring at the wall or the monitor while you're waiting. We're also working with grocery stores to put up produce signs that are near the goods that you're buying, so you know how to store potatoes when you're buying potatoes. Another big partnership is the National Night Out, where 3 of our cities have agreed to let us put a handout in the, like when you have a National Night Out gathering, you get a bag from the Sheriff Department of all the great city resources, and we're going to have Save the Food information in that bag. Next slide. And here's just other opportunities that we're doing. We know awareness isn't the be-all, end-all of behavior change, so we are partnering or we're also providing one-on-one education and tools to now make these residents that are now aware to actually change their behavior. And that is all for my presentation. Thank you.
Jenny, thank you so much for your work, and what an impressive array it is. I have one question from a waste angle, and you talked a little bit about the paradox between prevention and recycling. Is the Twin Cities a pay-as-you-throw community?
Nope, none of our Twin Cities areas are pay-as-you-throw. We do have a state ordinance that does say different volumes of waste have to cost different, but it doesn't give an actual percentage of how much it should be. So it's not great pay-as-you-throw language. And almost all of the cities in Dakota County, of our large cities, all are private. So multiple haulers on multiple streets. We only have 2 cities that are organized with 1 hauler. That's why we kind of want to get ahead of the whole organics collection part.
Absolutely. We have one small question about what was food waste training on your last slide?
Oh, yeah. So we actually have this idea. I don't have a good name for it yet, but I want to do kind of an army of food waste educators. So they'd be trained like maybe on a half day on a Saturday or something, and then they would talk to their neighbors and friends and just be a more informed populace, because we know from social behavior change that one-on-one education is the best form of education. So we need to get those first people educated.
Absolutely. And then I have several questions, Jenny, that talks about tools that you're measuring the program. How do you measure the impact and success from the outreach ads and the direct outreach to the community events?
That must be a government person asking, because we in government definitely like to track our metrics, and we do have to report everything. So we are relying somewhat on the Ad Council for doing surveys. They do the national surveys like you heard about earlier. So we'll use their data. They actually gave us all of their questions to be able to do our own survey. We just don't know if we have enough money to go through with that for a post-survey. So we're tracking all of our metrics, but then we do have to track our actual tonnage and recycling and organics each year. So we'll be hoping that our organics amounts are going actually down, with our trash not also going up.
Absolutely. And finally, can you talk a little bit about your budget?
Yeah, so we're very lucky. I wasn't always at Dakota County. I come from Colorado, where $90,000 would have been like our whole budget for the whole year for all our programs. So I totally get that that's a large amount of money. We're lucky enough in Dakota County and in Minnesota where we have taxes on trash, which fund a lot of our programs. And $90,000 is just a part of our public ed budget. And we actually we just made up $90,000 because of, based on, maybe printing or other campaigns that we've done for other, like our hazardous waste drop-off, where we actually did spend that amount of money. But we don't need to spend all that for this campaign because everyone loves it and wants to promote it.
It is a very likable campaign. So thank you so much for your work and sharing that with us today on the webinar. Much appreciated.
Great, thanks for having me.
So we will now jump to our last presentation by Barbara Hamilton, who is with the San Diego Food System Alliance. And Barbara, I'd also like to give you a plug for my colleague Andre that you are an EPA Food Recovery Challenge endorser. So we thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm excited to be a part of this campaign as well, and seeing the results just gives us more momentum to go forward. The San Diego Food System Alliance is a coalition focused on building awareness, collaborations, and advocacy in support of an equitable, healthy, and sustainable food system in San Diego County. And the Alliance represents a diverse cross-section of the food system, including production, distribution, health, food security, philanthropy, education, research, and government, bringing together stakeholders from across the region. Philanthropy and private investment are both essential for innovation in this field today, and my work specifically was funded by an anonymous donor of the San Diego Foundation, who was moved by this two-sided problem of food waste and hungry people. The grant funded 3 food waste reduction programs. The first is Market Share, which is a nonprofit program of Produce Good, which gleans fresh produce directly from farmers at the end of 3 different farmers markets in San Diego County. Gleaners here mostly pick excess fresh produce from groves of trees and community scale gardens, saving it from going to waste. Market Share is an opportunity to work directly with farmers, providing them with a tax incentive for donation instead of hauling the produce back. The gleaners will even take the ugly produce. The second program is Kitchens for Good, which is adding an additional larger commercial kitchen in North San Diego County. They operate as a social enterprise, providing culinary job training for unemployed individuals. And in this training, they use donated produce that would have otherwise gone to waste for catering, contract meals, and sometimes transforming it into shelf-stable foods as retail products, creating a reliable stream of income. And then my work at the Alliance, directing a strategic food waste reduction and food recovery initiative. My focus is on the top 2 tiers of the EPA food recovery hierarchy, and includes as a strategy a county-wide food waste consumer education campaign. Next slide. We've coined our initiative Save the Food San Diego. It's a countywide food waste awareness partnership that leverages the national Save the Food public service campaign. Our partnership strategy started at the top. NRDC and the Ad Council supported us in branding the campaign specifically for the San Diego region and are working with us to distribute a series of Save the Food billboards and create a buzz with branded assets and media attention. Cal Recycle, the California statewide waste and recycling department, is also supporting this unique partnership opportunity here in San Diego County. They actually sent a formal support letter to each of the 19 jurisdictions, city councils, mayors, city managers, and recycling coordinators in the county. They see a countywide collaboration to reduce food waste and increase donation of edible food to people to be the right thing at the right time. So we're in a strategy phase right now, getting multiple jurisdictions and sectors on board, preparing to launch our consumer education campaign in September. But with this leadership from the top and the interest in the county from jurisdictions and other organizations, we agree that the timing is right. Next slide. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. In San Diego County, we throw away about 500,000 tons of food every year, and at the same time, about 500,000 people live in poverty and are subsequently food insecure. Food waste is definitely a complicated national issue, which affects San Diego County in a distinct manner. Recent California legislation, AB 1826 and SB 1383, require less food waste to landfill from businesses and from residents. SB 1383, which is still in rulemaking, also includes an edible food donation requirement. This is new territory for the state and for the regional jurisdictions. Although planning efforts are underway in San Diego County, we don't have robust systems in place to compost or digest food waste. Yet current legislation requires compliance. So jurisdictions are left with few options to help residents and organizations. This leaves us in a position to work on reduction in donation as priority first steps before new infrastructure and systems are finalized. And Save the Food San Diego is one resource in this toolkit. Next slide. According to research from ReFed, consumer education campaigns offer the highest return on investment for strategies to reduce food waste. So we're meeting with local government and their businesses, schools, hospitals, universities, grocers, and large venues in groups and individually. We encourage them to all utilize Save the Food messaging assets during specific time periods in 2017 and 2018 so that we can track our impact. We want to create a buzz, a multi-layered platform for discussion and education on food waste, and eventually behavior change. The Alliance is funding $5,000 this year and next for the printing for the billboards. We're coordinating media coverage, branded resources, and tracking participation. Our vision is that Save the Food messaging will be seen and heard all over the county, coming from many different sources, creating a buzz of recognition for consumers. We encourage jurisdictions to use the assets to message to their stakeholders, driving traffic to SaveTheFood.com for tips on shopping, cooking, and storing food to reduce waste. We let them know that Save the Food website analytics can track hits from their city and what that data can tell them about their efforts. We're holding convenings with local government and organizational sectors to brainstorm opportunities and ideas together on how to creatively message from multiple departments in using their existing communication channels. These have been really fun, and they've generated some great ideas too. We asked jurisdictions to consider who generates food waste. Their brainstorms came up with the usual suspects of residents, restaurants, schools, hospitals, hotels, cafeterias, but also farmers markets, temporary events, food trucks, concession stands, food manufacturing. We asked them who can message, from what departments, how to message to residents and to organizations. And they suggest using departments of environmental health, business licensing, inspections, waste haulers, using city and employee newsletters, websites, social media, utility bills, community magazines, lunch and learns, farmers markets, car shows, parades, TV channels, consumer service counters, associations, church groups, and senior centers. They came up with a lot of ideas that would work for them. And we also asked them to consider who could make a good case study in their area and who in their city does food recovery, because they're still learning about that side of the equation. Using Save the Food San Diego as a resource for food waste education and outreach Jurisdictions can report back to the state on measurable activities and outcomes that help to raise awareness about food waste and inspire behavior change. Next slide. As a part of our Save the Food San Diego initiative, we're also facilitating regional network building toward creating a robust and lasting network for food waste reduction and donation across San Diego County. We're engaging food waste generators by sector because they have different opportunities and barriers, and they can learn from each other across jurisdictions. Restaurants and food service, universities and hospitals, K-12 schools, grocery and warehouses, and stadiums and venues. In addition to using the Save the Food assets in their own communication, we are encouraging and facilitating collaboration within the sector to identify and engage existing local champions for developing peer presentations, case studies, and shared resources for both food waste reduction and donation. We have already identified case study opportunities with 3 healthcare systems, 3 universities, 4 K-12 school districts, and 1 produce distributor. But what we're finding out is that even within the sectors, there may be different barriers and opportunities to message with Save the Food assets and to work on actual food waste reduction. In K-12 schools, for instance, some have central kitchens and trucks that can backhaul food to facilitate donation, but some don't, and their food ends up in the landfill. K-12 schools identify that they can use newsletters, print materials, social media, digital menu boards, and student-led activities and games to share Save the Food assets. Universities often have multiple food service outlets and also deal with food waste left behind at times of student move-out. Universities and hospitals both can track waste in the kitchen for source reduction and message to staff, students, patients, and visitors with table tents, tray liners, posters, and digital media. We have a lot of great restaurants and chefs in the San Diego region too, and we will be engaging with them to use the Save the Food assets at a sustainable cooking and mixology competition called Wasted, where they will use only potential food waste for their creation. At this event, we'll be able to network with the chefs and with the customers who would come to these events to have that great food. Our local food banks have relationships with large grocers, and we're working with them to push out messaging and collaboration opportunities to those organizations. We're also engaging with food recovery organizations to better understand their needs and capacities, to make connections, and to inform the development of a regional food donation action plan funded by San Diego County supervisors. We're collaborating with hunger advocates and hunger relief organizations, and we have advocated with state agencies to support regional planning and funding efforts. Working together across the county, we can all help each other, and we can have a more significant impact in the region that benefits us all. Next slide, please. Our goal is to strategically and collaboratively roll out the awareness building messaging in fall 2017, following up with behavior change messaging in 2018. Leading up to our September rollout, we continue working to identify and engage stakeholders, develop and share resources. And by September, we'll be ready for a strategic rollout to consumers with multimedia messaging from local governments and organizational and business stakeholders across the county. Next slide, please. We'll have a formal Save the Food San Diego kickoff at the Food Waste Solutions Summit 3 on September 26th. The summit this year will focus on capacity building, innovation, and best practice in reducing food waste and increasing wholesome food recovery. So please let me know if you have any great kickoff ideas with some fanfare. And with that, I thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara, for your work. I think at this point in time, we're just going to go back to some general questions. First, Barbara, before we leave the San Diego area, I have a couple for you. And one is talking about how is San Diego measuring K through 12 school food waste? I know you mentioned there's a bunch of different types of kitchens and establishments in the county.
Yeah, so it really depends upon the K-12 school. There are a number of programs actually that are being funded doing plate waste studies, and a program called Smart Kitchen Initiative, which is being employed in a number of schools across the county. There are also groups of K-12 schools that already get together, the Farm to School Task Force, which is facilitated by Community Health Improvement Partners, and they're also addressing the food waste issue to try to develop methods. Typically what they are measuring is the plate waste at the end, and the schools that are donating are then able to also measure the donation of the food that goes out.
Absolutely. You know, in today's world, we get a lot of questions about job creation. And have you looked at all about that angle on the campaign?
A little bit. That's one of the reasons that we're focusing, that one of our focuses for the summit is on innovation, because what we find is that it is a struggle sometimes for the food recovery organizations to find funding to continue their work, and they work with a lot of volunteers. And there's a place in the market for increased innovation where certain organizations will take a food that would have been a waste and turn it into a viable product that they could make money on. And we have a few organizations in San Diego County that are already doing that, turning old sheet cakes from grocery stores and wasted bread into vodka, for instance. There's some other organizations that we're inviting to participate in the summit that are taking wasted quinoa and grains and turning it into healthy food bars. So really looking for innovation as a way to do job creation and create markets for some of those products as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great, thank you so much. So I'll open it up to some more general questions. And then one question just popped in that's kind of near and dear to my heart. It talked about how do you deal with people being potentially sued by donating food? And please, we've done many, many conversations about the Bill Emerson Act. From 1996, there's tremendous liability protection for donating food, and I think that we have to make everyone aware of that. So that's just an answer to one of the questions that came in. So getting back to the campaign, so many questions on measurement of impact, and going back way on early to the conversation, can you share, and this would be to the first three presenters, can you share more on the 9,800 surveys and how they were conducted? And please talk a little bit about that. Ad Council folks, can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So
we've lost your audio again.
can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, our continuous tracking study is conducted by Ipsos Public Affairs, and they do a lot of national polling and brand surveys and whatnot. So the survey that they use is an online panel. So they have a combination of panelists who opt into the surveys from all over the country from several different panels. And then they also have river sampling, which means that they might put you know, an ad on Facebook somewhere and someone might click it and then opt into this panel in this survey. It really depends on the type of survey respondents that we're looking for. So for this campaign, we are serving generally adults 18 plus. So it would be that combination of panelists from a number of panels through Ipsos partners and then also through the river sampling.
Great, thank you very much. I also want to talk a little bit about the measurement, again, of the edible food in organics. So are you tracking edible food in organics as part of the measurement? And I think, Jenny, that was actually to you. And Jenny is muted.
Hi, okay, yes, I got muted. So for the 17%, I'm guessing that's the reference. When that was done, that is at the landfill. So that's including food waste that's inedible and edible food waste. We do know from, we have done the Food Too Good to Waste Challenge, which is another tool from the EPA. And we had done with our Green Corps member that we had for 11 months, she did a 6-week pilot to a 6-week challenge, excuse me, she had 73 households sign up to learn about the tools and track their weekly preventable food waste for 6 weeks. And we did see a reduction in that. And I can't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't a huge reduction, but over the 6 weeks, there were a few pounds saved. And of course, that's 73 households multiplied by all of our households. So we do have some data about that. It is very hard to track food waste, after it leaves the house, because you don't know if it could have been edible. So I do know that the EPA is doing an amazing study right now with partners on the West Coast to try to actually get more specific data like that. And that should be coming out later this year, I believe.
Absolutely. That would be Ashley Zanoli and the Department
right.
of Environmental Quality. And we will most likely have them on as a webinar topic. So very much interest in that topic. So thank you so much. Jenny, one more question for you. I have a question that says, are you planning to expand the messaging to school cafeterias?
I'm hoping so. Right now, the program that I'm doing is actually only like a quarter or less part of my time. So I can only do so much. I really want to do everything, but we're hoping, we know our partners like in Hennepin County have a person working directly with businesses with the Refed program and working with their school staff on getting food waste or preventing food waste in the cafeterias. So we're hoping to build up to that. We just don't have enough staff time right now.
Great. Thank you so much. So here's a question for the Ad Council and the NRDC. Have you considered working with grocery store bags? So folks bringing home grocery would actually see a physical message.
So this is Joanne. We actually have had some conversation about grocery store bags and then also shopping carts, and are looking at ways to deploy that, and perhaps the Ad Council can flesh that out a little bit in terms of more of those particulars of grocery engagement.
Yeah, so having messaging on grocery bags was actually an initial idea that Sapient came to us with. I think it's a little bit tricky because, it depends obviously on our relationships with grocery store chains. As I mentioned earlier, we have done a couple of rounds of placements on grocery carts in a number of grocery stores through a vendor called News America. We did one, I think, back in early fall before the Thanksgiving and holiday season, and then we just did another one this past March in Kroger stores. So that's been the extent of our grocery store placements thus far, but definitely something that we're thinking about.
Great, thank you for that. Please forgive me, I got a little ahead of myself with my questions. Joanne, I'd like to turn it over back to you just to give us our final closeout of the formal presentation.
Terrific. Well, this is Joanne at NRDC, and first I just want to say thank you to everyone who's on the line today. We've had over 400 people with us, which is just fantastic. And we hope that the webinar today has helped you feel like you're connected and you know what the campaign is about, that you have a sense of where the results are that are being generated from the campaign, and that you have a sense for how you can participate in whatever way might be appropriate to you and your organization. Before we break, I want to alert you to a couple additional resources. If you have more questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, please go ahead and email our national advisor. And Jorge, if you could move that slide one shot further. The final slide has her email address. So that's savethefood@nrdc.org. And you can reach out to our national campaign coordinator, and she can circle back with you with any questions that you might have. Secondly, we will be issuing the 5-year update of our seminal wasted report later this summer. In 2012, many of you know our colleague Dana Gunders wrote the wasted report, and it was a set of research that really helped catalyze the national dialogue around this issue of food that goes to waste. So we've been working diligently on the 5-year update to that report, and we should have that coming out in late summer. And then we'll have additional research coming out this fall related to methodologies for assessing how much food is being wasted in the city level in various places, as well as an analysis that I've been working on looking at how much of the food that's currently going to waste could potentially be rescued for people in need. So stay tuned for that material. We anticipate that that will come out later this fall. And then lastly, we have a survey that you can take at the end of the webinar, and we would encourage you to do that. We welcome your feedback about the webinar and additional types of information that might be helpful to you. So thank you for joining us. Please accept our congratulations for all of the good work that everyone on the phone is doing to keep good food from going to waste around the country. We look forward to your participation in the campaign. We want to say thank you and have a fantastic day.
Great. Well, with that, we considered up a few more questions, and we too thank the NRDC and the Ad Council and the communities for their work. So let's get back to a few questions that we have on the chat box. And one is there a cost to tap into the Save the Food materials? For example, posters to place in county offices, sides of collection trucks. I think you've talked about that, but can we reiterate the position on that? Ad Council folks, are you there? Or Joanne?
Yeah, sure. Joanne, if I can go ahead and jump in. All of the materials that will be featured in the upcoming Share It section of the site will be downloadable and free for anyone to print and post in your kitchens or schools or communities.
Great. Thank you so much. I just have another question that talks a little bit more generically about that campaign. To clarify, the Ad Council and Energy Schools with the Save the Food campaign is to promote education and awareness in this round. What is the next step to creating behavior change or habit creation? Or does the research show that education and awareness should lead to behavior change?
Definitely.
This is Rochelle. Sorry, go ahead, Hillary.
No, go ahead. I'll jump in.
I was going to actually just say that, with what we know that, often awareness and attitude changes then lead to behavior change. Not always the case, but in a lot of the cases. And so I think in this next phase of work, we're really looking to focus on tools, things that actually help implement behavior change. So Hillary, I don't know if you want to talk a little more about that.
Definitely. So the second phase of the campaign, Sapient is really digging into all of the different mindsets around food waste that we can really get into more detail with in our communication. So like Rochelle mentioned, being able to provide those tools at the upfront in our communications rather than, having the more emotional awareness piece. Oh, we love our strawberry spot, but, there aren't many concrete ways you could look at that spot and really be like, okay, that's, now I know about it, but what am I really supposed to do? And I have to go to the site. You kind of have to dig around on the site. So we're really working on having the to-dos more in the upfront so that it's way more easy for people to see our ads and use our tools and tips to start changing their behavior right away.
Great. Thank you very much. We have someone from Canada that talks about, is there a separate campaign in Canada? Can we use Save the Food in Canada?
So the Ad Council only distributes our work nationally, and all of the rights for our different assets are just restricted to the U.S. But definitely happy to discuss that further, how you might be able to do a campaign in Canada and share our learnings for how we conduct campaigns here for something that might be able to work in Canada, depending on the different cultural nuances and whatnot.
And this is Jenny. I just want to add there are several Canadian partners for the Food Too Good to Waste resources through the EPA. I know some in Vancouver and Victoria. So you can always look up Food Too Good to Waste Canada, and there should be some search results that would help you.
Thank you, Jenny. Barbara, while we're talking about this, can you talk a little bit more about the coalition building, and maybe Jenny, you too, talk about the coalition building and we talked about partnerships. And any tips to get started on that? And why don't we go to Barbara first?
Yeah, so our strategy was really to do a county-wide effort. And because of legislation in the state, we knew that all the jurisdictions had a vested interest in participating. So we really started messaging with them in the beginning and talking about what it was that we wanted to do, while at the same time trying to develop a larger strategic program from the top down, working with NRDC, Ad Council, and Cal Recycle. And when we started talking with the jurisdictions, we really realized that this is new to them, that typically in waste management, they're just looking at diversion from landfill. And even to that point about how much of the food is actually edible food for recovery, in the state of California, we waste about 6 million tons of food waste a year, and maybe, we're not sure yet, based upon waste characterization, maybe 10 to 20% of that is actually recoverable. So it's a real learning environment, and so we're trying to facilitate that and let everybody know that we're all in this together and there's lots of resources. And so as a part of our strategy with the jurisdiction, we're also collaborating to help them to understand who their stakeholders are in the community. With one of the universities in North San Diego County, we were able to pull together an entire group of people from the university, which from the student services side, from the food pantry side, which they set up, to their cafeteria for food waste source reduction, to Health and Human Services to come on site and provide recipes and ideas about nutrition, working with the local pantries and local food banks, and as well as the local school districts to try to even make some of those introductions, because they haven't necessarily had to work together before on these issues. And we feel that it's a much stronger partnership if they can do that. And then taking that sort of an effort and replicating that in another part of the county so that we can all continue to learn from these larger lessons has been our strategy.
Jenny, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I so admire Barbara's work. I wish we could do exactly what she's doing here, and hopefully we will eventually. For just the awareness part of just using the campaign, really we just started with who we are currently working with, and since it was an advertising campaign, we're working with communications staff and our recycling staff at the city level. So we just started with, who are we already working with, and then I sat down with, the 5 or so cities that we wanted to target, and we went over ideas. We just brainstormed, how could we reach families with kids? How could we reach millennials? And we just started listing off things, and as it's been going, these people have been thinking about it this whole time, like the city staff, so they might reach out to me saying, oh, did you know about this opportunity? Here's a name for you. So it's just kind of led to bigger things. So I would just say start with the partners you currently have that you work with. And I love the wasted food message, because everyone has wasted food. So no matter what audience you have, someone is able to be educated and change their behavior.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. We have one more question, I think, before our time is out, and it really gets down to the nitty-gritty on the Ad Council, and it talks about one of the images that we've seen on the egg and the wasted water. So how many gallons of water are wasted when an egg is thrown away? Has the Ad Council or NRDC found this correlation between wasted water and wasted food to be an effective behavior change?
I think we definitely have, as that's the asset that really speaks to the environmental aspect of the issue. And I know our regional media director, who's based out in California, has said that that asset in particular has been, the most chosen asset for the media partners to run out there, just because of, the drought issues that have been happening recently. So I think in certain areas of the country, kind of depending on what is occurring there and what aspects of the issue really are cropping up more in those communities, it's great to have an array of assets that kind of speak to different facets of the issue.
And I'll
Great.
just add, if I could add real quick, we did focus groups last year of residents to see what messages resonate with them. And I know the Ad Council did this too, but no matter what, even after they knew about wasted food, the $1,500 per family of 4 was always the top pick of what resonates with families. Environmental resources were second after learning about the waste, but really that money savings was a key message.
Fascinating. And I would imagine I've seen data on different parts of the country, like you said, react in a different way on some of the messaging.
This is
So,
Joanne. I can comment on
Joanne.
that as well, Chris. Yeah, when we had done some of the initial research, we did take a regional perspective on it and tried to identify what messages resonated in different parts of the country. And it was very interesting because different things resonated in different places. There wasn't necessarily one unifying theme that worked in all contexts. And so you'll see in the messaging, there's a very strong pocketbook message around the costs associated with food that people purchase and then let go to waste. But there also are those environmental elements we want to bring in so that people understand the broader context and impact of the efforts that they make to try to reduce the amount of food that they have go wasted in their homes. So it's a tricky messaging, and it includes a number of those different pieces that you can see in our collateral.
Absolutely, and it's such a wide array of choices. Again, commend you so much for the materials, and thank you for sharing the new materials. We have come to the close of our time, and I really want to thank all of you on the phone for your participation, because really we do this for you. Thank you for putting up with our technical difficulties. Much apologies for that. We wish to thank our speakers for their insights on how to share Save the Food, and for the 2 communities that spoke. Really kudos to the work that you're doing. So please respond to our evaluation at the end of the webinar, and we appreciate if you would share your insight with us. The program is designed for you, so please make sure you complete the evaluation and give us the feedback on how we can continue to meet your needs. We will post the webinar audio in about 2 weeks. The slides are in your handout box right now before we shut down the webinar if you want to pull them out, and if not, they will be posted in a few days. Please join us for our next webinar, where we'll be introducing EPA's Wasted Food Mapping Tool, date to be determined. This concludes today's session. Thank you so much for participating.